Welcome to episode 23. Check out what you can expect from this episode. Josh plays the drums.
He's bringing this up because I play the drums, and I'm laughing and trying to watch him try to describe how you would give feedback on drum instructions.
It's all about the elbow, right, Josh?
Yeah, because the hi-hat's up above your head, right? That's
exactly.
Where it goes.
That's where the hi-hat is.
It's people, it doesn't. If you're not a drummer, that's not where the hi-hat goes. Okay. Or let's go back to our kata example, the Japanese martial arts. Yeah, sorry for those who are particular in this group.
Me,
which is Will. Clearly, we're not counselors.
Please do not take this as an endorsed counseling session.
Welcome to the Twilight Zone. Or at least that's what it feels like right now. To be honest, Will and I re-recorded like 4 times at the beginning of this intro. No, seriously, High Tech Podcast. We're back. We weren't really gone to you guys. We've been here. But we've been gone to ourselves, I guess.
I was traversing about the world. Took 2 weeks off.
Yeah, backpacking through Europe. That's not true.
having food poisoning on the beach and hanging out at my aunt's place. Woohoo!
Everybody's dream. I was working.
The glamorous life of the High Tech Podcast.
Yeah, the High Tech Podcast are just, it's raking in the dough, so we're just living the life.
Using that dough, we can buy ourselves delicious things, right?
Yes.
And so that's our question this week.
Yeah, like ice cream.
Yeah,
or froyo.
Or water ice.
Water ice. Because we know that when you guys come to our podcast,
that's what you want to know.
You have some educational questions, but you also are wondering, should I get ice cream? Should I get froyo? Or should I get water ice?
And what would these guys get if they were going to get it with me? Yeah, what would
these? I think Will is... Actually, before you ask this question, let's guess.
We're going to do the guess game?
Okay. So, so folks, obviously, intro question, right? This is our thing. So we always ask a little fun question. If we find that you hate it, we'll probably stop doing it eventually. But for right now, we don't know.
So let us know. Hashtag not a sponsor.
Mention us on Twitter at High Tech Podcast. Shameless plugging.
It's shameful.
Yeah, well, it's fine. It is our show. I'm gonna take a guess. I'm gonna go with ice cream.
You think my favorite of those 3 would be ice cream? Like if I had a choice, the 3 of them are standing next to each other, I would take ice cream.
I don't know if I've ever been in a situation with you where we've had those 3 choices, so I'm kind of taking a guess.
I feel like we need to have this experience. I think so. I really do probably say I'd go with ice cream. I mean, like it just between those 3, water ice, delicious, but I almost always get a water ice with some custard. I love to have the custard with it, you know. And then froyo is good, but it's like there's always tons of different flavors. I don't know. I don't want the froyo because I want froyo. I want froyo because I'm gonna get like weird stuff and bobas on it and peach rings in there. So ice cream, I will eat ice cream for itself 9 out of 10 times. I'm
gonna be honest. I struggle telling the difference between ice cream and froyo. I'm just gonna be upfront. Froyo's just like, okay, so we should have thought about these questions before we asked them because we're the most boring people in the world. Because my answer is also ice cream. I gotta be honest. If you're sitting here and you responded not ice cream to this question, it is really the wrong answer. Like there's not even a competition. It's like, do you like gold, seaweed?
or root canals.
What? Yeah. Okay. So I like ice cream, but I also, I think I just don't like froyo because I don't really quite know the difference. It kind of just tastes like worse ice cream, like watery ice cream.
Well, it's soft serve, but it's got to be more yogurt. Like it's yogurt in its design. I don't know. That's just how they make it.
As you're trying to describe it, you don't even know. You can't even give a real description.
The more you describe it, Will, the more it sounds like ice cream.
Yeah. Like if I ask the difference between spaghetti and tacos, you know immediately how to answer that question.
Sure,
right?
Sure.
If I ask the difference between ice cream and froyo, you don't even know what's in it.
So they're different. One comes out of those cool handle thingies that you pull on, and the other gets scooped out of a container.
Except there is soft served ice cream.
What's soft served ice cream?
Soft served ice cream and froyo.
Maybe soft served.
They're not the same thing.
Maybe they are.
Are they?
We don't.
See?
Okay.
We don't know. Welcome to the Twilight Zone. We have no idea.
So ice cream's our favorite. What would be your go-to flavor?
My go-to flavor?
Yeah.
I don't know. Probably something brownie / peanut butter related, I guess. I
I'm-
like a lot of ice cream.
I'm cookie. It's got to be Oreo
Okay.
or cookie dough. Like I want a cookie
Alright,
or
well,
the
I like me some cookie dough.
you know that the one at Penny's, the cinnamon cookie, the oatmeal
Oh, yes.
raisin cookie or
Oatmeal,
whatever.
yeah, oatmeal
Oh,
raisin cookie.
yeah.
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 Oh, that's good. If you're in Lancaster, people, Penny's. It's got great ice cream.
Yeah.
Not a sponsor. They're not.
Not a
I don't-
sponsor.
We just love them. That's free sponsorship. So if anybody from Penny's listen to this, come talk to us. Sponsorship from ice cream would be amazing.
For a podcast.
For a podcast. Yeah, so speaking of ice cream, I don't know how to transition this one.
Well, as we're talking about physical things that you can't taste or
Yeah.
enjoy over an audio format, we really have this question we get quite a bit about how to do like skills-based instruction, right?
Yeah.
In online education. So a skill we're saying is typically going to be something more that you would demonstrate physical. Maybe it's your body's moving. Maybe you create something. And so our question to be answered is how to use audio video for skills-based instruction, because we want to do skills and we want to do skills online, but you will have people say like, oh, you can't teach something right online. And I'd say I beg to differ.
Yeah. Yeah, now I'm curious. Well, we didn't talk about this ahead of time. When's the first, like, if you could track it, when is the first time you've ever had to try to think through how you do like a skills-based type of learning? And again, just the classification I think you and I have been really using is there's a lot of different types of like skills, but we're more focused on like I think kind of physical displaying of skill. Like I think when we think skills-based learning, that's ultimately what it really comes back to for a lot of people. So I'm curious, when's the first time you like had to deal with this question?
Personally, it probably goes back 5 years. I started teaching Taekwondo. So I'm a long-term martial artist. I teach it for my schools. I've taught it for my master, taught it for other local schools in the area. But I actually started a PE class at my alma mater. So it was 3-credit Taekwondo course. And I did almost all my instruction face-to-face, but I did have the students, I did want to have something like that they documented that they were doing practice. Frankly, take some pictures, do some videos. Like I just needed something to know that outside of the classroom, because we only have 50 minutes, that they were practicing their form and they were doing some of the exercises. So that goes back about 5 years, and it wasn't high stakes. It wasn't like an exam or something. It was just like grab a picture or a 30-second video of you doing, or it didn't have to be 30, but like if they were doing their the form they were practicing, it would have been about 1 minute and 15 seconds at the most, if they were really doing it well. So that's what started for me, and I was using it myself, but I've since gone on to use a couple of different techniques for that for a handful of instructors at my institution. So how about you? Have you ever done it or?
Yeah, I mean, like
it?
I haven't had to facilitate it because my background is less in the physical display. But I would say like I think I've come across it in a couple different places. I think I'm trying to track the first time. I would probably say the first time was more in like less of like a physical display skills based, but more of like a counseling skills based type of situation where they had to like display the use of certain skill. Like it's one thing to write on it, it's a different thing to show like doing mock type of things. Like instructors were already trying to do that type of thing, so like trying to help with how you put that into more of a digital space and do it well.
I actually
the first interaction
had an instructor do that in response to COVID-19. She didn't think that she was going to be able to kind of recreate or capitalize on this experience she had done previously, where she would have the students in kind of a psychology counseling context. She would have the students demonstrate, the proper way to apply a specific psychological technique, if you will. And she had them record themselves doing it the opposite. Like, go and do something. Go show me how you shouldn't do something, right? Because I think one of the things that they have to be careful about, and this is true about a lot of different skills in skills-based instruction, is if she told the students without her support to go and do the correct technique, is there the chance that they'll try and like psychologically evaluate their friends, which is unethical, or might they do it wrong and hurt their friend, or you got to be careful if they're doing it on their own time somewhere else. Even more so with martial arts training, maybe like I don't want to tell a kid, hey, you got to go practice kicking someone in the gut, Like, that's not an option. We're not doing that.
But you say that. I say it is.
But it was really interesting that she
forms.
found that way to, like, okay, do it wrong, because if you're doing it wrong, there was so much less risk, for the psychological tools.
Yeah, ours was more of like a mock. Like, this is not a real.
Right.
It was understood. This is kind of like you're taking on a persona of some sort and doing this with a person. And I mean, I've been involved in some like audio stuff for music, like trying to record, like, how do we deal with, knowing somebody's singing, stuff like that. And some of it recently has been COVID response stuff, but like that was early on. I remember like a conversation with an instructor of like, I need to hear them do this a certain way. Like I need to hear the tone or the note that they play, or stuff like that.
So you need that to be really good quality too, right?
Yes. Yeah. Or something like that. And I think there's like a certain acceptance to, like, it's not always going to be beautiful quality. Like you're sitting there with that person. Plus, these are students learning. So even if it wasn't for audio problems, it probably wouldn't have been beautiful quality. But I like, those are mine that I think they're in here. Now to the question though, like, how do we solve this with audio video? We've been kind of like haphazardly answering the question while talking about these other solutions, right? Because I think it's tough for you and I to talk about what we've been presented with without actually talking about how we solved it. So
yeah,
I think we focus on audio video for this because, like, yes, there's other ways to do certain skills-based assessment without audio video, but specifically audio video comes into play so much because it's often somebody has to display something or you have to evaluate something that's happening, right?
And pictures aren't enough.
Yes,
right?
And pictures
like, there's
aren't
something
enough, right?
to, like, hey, take a picture of consider art, right? Make a pot out of clay. You take a picture of a pot. How the hell do you know that they made the pot? You know what I mean? It's like, there's no proof that person used their hands to make the pot if they just take a picture.
Or like the technique that went into it. Because a lot of skills-based is not just the end result. It's the technique you're using, right?
Said.
So Taekwondo, you're using a certain technique. Music, you're using a certain technique. We've seen this in phys ed before where, like, they have to do certain, like, I don't know. I'm the horrible phys ed, but
well, I've applied this. I've applied this in not only my Taekwondo. I supported a Tai Chi instructor who was teaching Tai Chi through COVID-19.
Fancy.
Art, I supported a faculty member who was doing painting and then also drawing and using audio video to supplement this for online purposes, and Spanish, right? Spanish language acquisition. Spanish requires a lot of speaking. You need to be able to listen and speak to do that well. So those are, I think, a good... It is very skills-based, very humanities-focused, but they're good examples, in my opinion, of like, oh, you can't teach that online. Sure I can. I'll teach you a language online. I'll teach you martial art.
And of course, there's going to be a certain... I think where a lot of people hit a wall, right, is, okay, it's one thing to have them submit me something. How do I do feedback back and forth? How do I display and this is where I think audio video can come in. It's just we have to reconceptualize. We talked about this in a different episode. I think it was when we were talking about like languages, right? Yeah. Is that we are so used to immediate feedback, right? We're so used to like somebody does this position or they play this note or they do something like this and we can give them immediate feedback. And while there's certain, it's definitely helpful, it's not always necessary. Like if we get more used to them providing you something, providing feedback to them, having them try to there's an iterative process that you can use to skills-based learning with audio video.
Yeah.
Right? That now the problem is that requires us to think about how do we break the things down into more segmented elements, I think is where I encourage people when they're thinking through this stuff, like skills-based. How do you focus a student in on a certain skill that they have to do amongst the whole skills and actually have them focus in on that in there? So like music, right? You could have them play an entire 20-minute piece, or you could have them play a section of that piece in a video or audio format, I would recommend, depending on what you actually need to see, doing one of those two. So that you can give quick feedback and they can kind of iterate and build that up to something bigger.
That's actually, I'm really glad you pointed to that. And as you're talking, I was like, oh, we got to talk about this, right? If you have the students record themselves working for 30 minutes, it's appropriate to say that you have to watch all 30 minutes. And that's not as effective for you or them, right? Like, because now you're right. If I've been doing martial arts for 20 years. If somebody's doing something in front of me, I can literally physically move their body and make them do it better immediately. That immediate feedback is so valuable to them, and they're going to immediately correct themselves. I'll have them do the technique or the form again, and you'll see them start to adjust already, and you might look at them, and that's enough feedback, and they'll, oh yeah, he changed me on move 15. I'll make sure 16's better this time, right? If you record yourself for 30 minutes, the effective way to provide feedback on that is to watch the 30 minutes and at 5 minutes and 23 seconds, write down what went wrong. And at 6 minutes and 20 seconds, write down what went wrong. And at 7 minutes and 11 seconds, write down what went wrong. And you're sitting there, and that takes a lot of time from an instructional standpoint. I think you're really onto it, Josh, when you say like, hey, if you want the student learning drums to hit the hi-hat correctly, you have to have them show you that practice. Don't have them show you the entire song that they did on drums, right? There's a value for that too. Maybe you have them do that for a separate thing, but if hi-hat is the focus, you need them to do that in the video. You should get a 2 to 5 minute sample of that so you can see the technique in action, and you can give them, like, frankly, in my opinion, if you can see them do that motion over and over again, you can say like, hey, notice on the first 3 intervals you hit it this way, but on the second 3 intervals you actually changed already your elbow position and you hit it a little bit better that way. I don't know. Josh plays the drums.
He's bringing this up because I play the drums, and I'm laughing and trying to watch him try to describe how you would give feedback on drum instruction.
It's all about the elbow, right, Josh?
Yeah, well, yeah, because the hi-hat's up above your head, right? That's
exactly.
Where it goes.
That's where the hi-hat is.
No,
it's
people, it doesn't. If you're not a drummer, that's not where the hi-hat goes. Okay, no, but your point, right, is now I get the struggle with that, right? Is it does mean that feedback is going to come in slower, okay, because you're going to be partitioning out sections. And that's why I think ultimately when we're talking audio video skills based instruction, it's I think you can do audio video where you're not there at the exact same time, right? And responding to each other for smaller stuff, and including an idea of how could I use some of our audio video tools like Zoom or something else like that to incorporate then maybe like a bigger session of live feedback or something along those lines. If we're talking like fully online. Now, if we're not talking fully online where you have like in classroom stuff, that's easy. How do I send them maybe some like weekly small stuff that they can do? Like show me this kata. That's the right thing, right? Yeah. I used to do martial arts.
Japanese styles.
For
yes.
Japanese styles. Okay, well, you know what? Forget you. So we're gonna say I'm Japanese. So kata. Like just show me a kata for this, right? Or whatever, a small thing.
Right. And that should only take a couple minutes. That's the point.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Like when you go home and then maybe it's in class or a live thing that it's a little bit more, right?
Right. Because if I was teaching somebody a new form, a new kata, as you're saying, I might spend 15 minutes of instructional time on that in the classroom, because I could have them do 6 moves and have them do it again in front of me and have them do it again in front of me. And then I could walk away and say, hey, do that 2 more times while I go work with somebody else. And then I can come back and be like, all right, you got those 6 moves down. Let's add 4 more on, see them do all 10 moves now, and then walk away again. Like that whole process is synchronous, and it's really easy to quickly give the student this much attention and turn to another student and give them attention. When it comes to this audio video approach to skills-based instruction, you need to be a lot more intentional about telling your students, I need this from you. I need this 30-second or this 1 minute or this 5-minute clip. I need to see you do this. Or, right, I did have some folks do this in the painting context, time-lapse yourself. I want you to record your 30 minutes of painting, right? But I don't need a 30-minute video, then there's a little bit more instruction to help the students learn how to make a time lapse. It's not too hard, but like the purpose of all of this, I think, is like audio video is really helpful. You can make it really effective. If you go long, it loses its effectiveness. And I think it's where people think, oh, you can't do that. How could I possibly teach students to counsel online when a counseling session has to be an hour long? Well, you're going to have to watch an hour-long session, or you're going to have the student record the entire session, but then give you the clips of what you're trying to assess, what you need them to do better on, right? Like you can do both.
Focus the assessment. Right. Yeah. And then like if it needs to be a larger project at the end, then focus in on how do I do at the end a larger assessment. And if you're dealing with like you have in class time, there's ways to do this, or come in to see them doing sessions. If it's online, we have tools to meet with people online. Just utilize those. Take the time to give those feedback, because feedbacks is totally a word. But in general, but like wrapping this up here, just this conversation real quick, I would say this: if you're looking to do, how do you actually use audio video to do this? I would say identify those things that you're trying to evaluate. What are the practical skills you're trying to evaluate? How can I break those into some smaller things that they do? Because if you're looking to do audio visual to do this, the reality is you're probably listening here and you're doing it in an online format somewhere, or a blended format. You need to do it somewhere. I'm hoping you're not just like, I don't feel like doing this in class. So like, how do you do this? Like pick what you need to evaluate, decide what that is. Like if that is something visual you need to do, then I would say, let's talk about video, and let's talk about, utilizing some of the video tools. I don't know, a wonderful podcast is suggested, or that we may suggest here in a second.
We would never suggest an app on this podcast, would we?
But I think the model is to think about it this way. You're going to need to, either with audio or video, have them send you something and you send feedback over to them. Mm-hmm. Or you display something like you and I talked about. You display something on video and they respond doing what you've shown them. But you need to think about it in smaller sections, and then think about what you're evaluating, and that'll determine whether or not, is it visual, then I need video. If it's just something I need to hear, like somebody saying a language like Spanish, or right. I've been in Hebrew classes where I had to speak Hebrew, right? Like audio's fine, and go with audio. It doesn't have to be video. Yeah. And video takes up more bandwidth for students, so pick audio. It's easier
when you can. Yeah, don't complicate it with video if you don't have to. Yeah. Now that just actually cued for me the real first time that I ever dealt with skills-based instruction for audio video. Is before my Taekwondo stuff. Going back to my writing center days, we had our director who created audio video feedback for students to do online appointments. Like most of the times when we did an online appointment, we got on them with a call and we shared screen and we went over the paper together. But if the tech didn't work, or if there was just scheduling issues at the wazoo, we would take the paper in and then go over it, record the audio video, and send that to them as the feedback. There you go. You're helping them learn to write a skill through those kind of it wasn't the student doing it. It was the instructor doing it to provide the feedback. Yeah. So there's a cycle here, I think, a loop, if you will, that's really valuable to understand.
Yeah. I think it's as easy as thinking about, just like the way I try to conceptualize it for people who don't do this often, is think about if when you were texting, you were just sending audio video each time. Like think about if it's a separate, and that's becoming a thing now. That's becoming
Marco
some stuff
Polo.
that's becoming popular. Think of it that way, because that's really what you're trying to do.
Yep.
And when you're texting, what are you not doing? You are not sending large, massive paragraphs. Maybe you are if you are of a certain age, and I say stop it. But for the most part, you're sending small stuff, and you're doing it over time, which builds up to a conversation, right?
So,
in text messaging or chat, and that's where I see this becoming the way you use the audio visual or video to do that. So
I really think, Josh, that if we would to kind of TLDR this, too long, didn't read. We really want to encourage you to thread together your content, your video content. Make it not just a one-time thing, but a consistent thread of feedback back and forth. And if you need to, use your voice to accomplish the task.
Yeah.
Right.
Your voice is going to be involved somehow, right?
Right. Especially
thread it in
if you use VoiceThread, our app of the day.
Wait, that's a tool?
Sacre bleu.
Whoa.
Yeah. VoiceThread is like almost literally the answer to this question, right?
Yes.
VoiceThread is a tool I've been using for some years. I really like it. Josh has played with it a little bit, and we were even, toying around with it before we started recording tonight. VoiceThread is a premium tool. So here's the big old asterisk on the front end. It's actually primarily a paid-for tool. You'll see it at a university having like a site license or something like that. But you can get a free one-user account. So it is technically freemium, right? The freemium seems to have a couple limitations. I think the biggest noticeable one was 5 voice threads. But
Which, for context, voice threads are like video presentations.
It's
the thing you're making. Okay, right. It's the content you're making.
So what is a voice thread?
Yes.
A voice thread is a compilation of pictures, videos, slides, PDFs, audio, whatever media type you want to put up there. It operates in a slide-by-slide context, so you could put up one video and that's a slide, and you could put up another video and that's a slide, and then you could put up 3 pictures that become 3 more slides in a voice thread. At the end of the day, you could just say it's a way to put up your slideshow. Right? You can take a PowerPoint and upload a PowerPoint straight into VoiceThread, and then using VoiceThread, you can record audio and video over each of the slides. Now, you might be saying or thinking to yourself, well, I have PowerPoint for that. Like, why do I need to do voice over PowerPoint in VoiceThread?
Good question.
It is a good question. Thank you
good
for
question,
asking
people.
it.
Yeah, thank you, people.
He asked a great question to himself, he said. Well, the thing about VoiceThread is, and the thing that you don't have with PowerPoint is, PowerPoint's a one-way tool. So that's how you deliver a lecture to students. VoiceThread is a social learning tool. It's a social learning space. So if I deliver the voice over PowerPoint to the students through VoiceThread, they can reply on my slides, and they can ask each other questions, and they can reply to each other. And you can have them make the voice thread. You don't have to be the one making it. So how does this play out? I've mentioned in the episode already that, like, I referred to some folks using Tai Chi to teach this way, using art, using Spanish. So these faculty I worked with literally had in the Tai Chi context, the first slide was just the instructor, just her face. She was speaking to her webcam, and she said, "Hey, this week, I want us all to do the form. You're going to do the first 16 moves of the form. Please record yourself on your own slide, and then I'll provide critique." Right? And so every student got on VoiceThread, got their phone out, and recorded just themselves doing the form. There was no other interaction, right? And then the teacher went through and was able to watch each of them do 16 moves, provide feedback. She could ask them to record again if it was really bad or if they just didn't do the right form or something, and move on. In the art context, they could, the instructor had them all, he put up, like, the first one slide was an image of what he wanted done, right? So let's say grayscale, just creating a grayscale image. And then he said, go ahead and put up an image of you doing that, and then they would provide critique. So he actually didn't rely a lot on video. If anything, he used some audio, and then a lot of the students just used text to comment to one another. But there was a lot of feedback opportunities there, because what he used to do in the classroom was a critique. They would put somebody's painting up on the easel, right, or drawing on the easel, and they would talk about it. So he took that and put it in a virtual context. Okay. I'm trying to kind of bring it to those examples because it is hard to visualize what a voice thread can do, but ultimately you can put audio, video, or images in a slide-by-slide format and have your students reply to you and or each other in a single voice thread experience. That's what's awesome.
Yeah, like, my immediate reaction is just like and we were walking through it, is like, there's a reason it's a freemium tool, that, like, the free thing is doesn't have a lot of uses, because this is a pretty significant tool. Like, if you were going to use it cuts out a lot of the middle work that you end up having to deal with this stuff, which is like getting a bunch of videos submitted.
Media rich, like everything should be video or audio. So there's a lot of file size.
I love that you can combine slides and videos. I think that's what I really dig about the tool, because, like, I mean, imagine it. Like, we're talking, let's go language for a second, right? So, like, a skill-based language, right? Like, imagine what it would be like to create a video with maybe, like, some visual slides of the words you're pronouncing, a video of you pronouncing. I don't know, you would never do that in a live classroom, right? Pronouncing it, and then actually having them have to respond to your voice thread pronouncing it back to you.
Yep.
To all of you who said, I can't do language online, VoiceThread immediately solves that problem.
The instructor I had who did it literally would do a couple of slides. She put a picture of a bedroom and say, in Spanish, "This morning I got up at 9 o'clock. I did my hair and got out of bed. What did you do?" And then all in Spanish, and the students were expected to reply to that question in Spanish, answering the question that she asked.
Oh, I want to do this now. Sorry. We have a good tool when I get excited about, like, an idea that you can do with it. Like, because think about what it would look like to do, like, in a language-based assessment, like, actually create conversation through the thread, like, actually create a conversation thread where they have to respond back contextually to things. Like,
everybody
pictures,
has to answer
images,
and ask a question.
Yeah, like, that would be that would be really cool. Or like in VoiceThread, let's go back to our kata example of the Japanese martial arts.
Of course.
Sorry. For those who are particular in this group. Which is Will. So like, let's go back to that. What would it look like to actually have either a video of you showing parts of the kata that they have to do? Even like if you have, I'm thinking like real, like pictures showing people doing movements, like step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever the kata, and having them do video responses of them doing sections of that kata in response to the visuals that you're showing them.
Right.
Like right there is a super cool way of doing some type of skills-based thing that gives the students the ability to create some content and creates just a cool visual way that you would do in class. It's different. Mm-hmm. It's a different thing that we have to get used to if we're going to do it in a virtual space.
Think about the counseling. You could have your students do mock counseling sessions with each other asynchronously. So you'd have to do a lot of prompting and structure, right? But you'd say, all right, student who's being counseled, you need to act this way, have this disposition, imagine that you're dealing with, and then act, and then, here's some cues, like try and say this, try and say that, try and say this. And so you'd get on there and the student could just at their own time, anywhere they are, just in the car waiting for a drive-through or, car wash, whatever, like, oh, I'm feeling so bad today. Like my mom said something to me last night and and they'd record that and upload it and it would stay there. And then the counselor would have to come in at their own time later and be like, all right, so I really hear what you're saying about your mother there, but I really think, is this something that might've been triggered by something that happened 3 weeks ago when you told me about blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm making it up on the spot.
Clearly
here.
We're not counselors.
Please do not take this as an endorsed counseling session. But like when people... When instructors come to me and say, you can't teach that, I 9 out of 10 times say, yes, I think there's a way. It may not be what you're used to, but there's a way.
You go to VoiceThread.
Right.
But it is, there's a lot of possibilities. I think that's why this tool works really well with this conversation and why we brought it up is that, yes, it's not a cheap one. The paid version, it's not crazy, but it's pretty pricey for
a single user.
For a single user, for a single user. And institutions can get licenses and things like that. If you're in a place where you can consider that,
right?
I would throw that out there. But I think in general, it's just the combination of the video visual gives you the ability to give something to your student and then respond back, and that's why I think it cuts out some of that middle work when you're dealing with just like your like learning management system, if you're in Canvas or you're in Schoology, Blackboard, whatever, sure, you can set up an assignment where they send you a video, you send them feedback back, but it's not quite as like a like you can there's just so much like visual narrative that you can create and kind of guiding in a way that you couldn't necessarily do in those spaces. Sure, I could upload a video that guides them on how to respond, but you can actually give them stages in this visual presentation where they can respond at the moments you need them to respond.
That's what we hadn't mentioned
gives better
yet.
Live feedback. Yeah.
When what Josh is saying there is that like if on either side, as an instructional side or for the student feedback side, if they're recording their pattern, their kata, and it takes them 3.5 minutes, you can stop the video at 1.5 minutes and put the feedback in there at 1.5 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. So when he said narrative, that really stood out to me. Like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Like VoiceThread is narrative driven. It starts from the first slide and it ends and it goes to the end of your entire experience. And so everybody's comment from the beginning of your VoiceThread to the end of the VoiceThread is in context. So if you had a question about the way somebody held their pencil while drawing, or a question about how the instructor moved their hand in the kata, or a question about why the instructor keeps pronouncing, N's really funny, if they've never heard about the letter Ñ in Spanish, right? Like, these are things you can do. You could pause it, like after somebody says baño, which is an N with an Ñ, you'd be like, instructor, why do you keep saying this N so funny? Like, it's like the first lesson in Spanish class, but somebody could ask that question. It's a fact, right? So I really like that about VoiceThread. The narrative approach is important, and it keeps everything contextually set.
And the fact that you can, both the students and you can respond at certain sections in the content that they provide. Yeah. Is good. I mean, like, think about that from the music standpoint. We talked about like video of somebody doing, I don't know why flute is in my mind right now, but let's do drums. Okay, let me try to explain drums.
Yeah, you actually play that instrument.
Plays that. Yeah. So, like, ask somebody to do a certain beat, right, or a certain measure or whatever it is, and you could actually pause the video in certain sections of the measure and make comments on the notes that they hit here, or the speed that they were playing, or any of those types of comments, right? Like, you could make comments at sections when they're doing certain things. Be like, you hit the beat wrong here, or you were off beat here, or
your hi-hat, you were
like
a little
way
too
up.
low
You're
with
too
your
low
hi-hat
or something. You know what I mean? Yeah. But like, I'm making those comments. So granted, like, drums is tough to do that with because you've got so many things that are hitting at the same time, right? But there's obviously ways to do it. There's things to do it.
Well, and I was just thinking
but in
creatively,
music in general, you could do that.
What I was just thinking about creatively with drums, or even any instrument, but like, imagine if you're teaching a class on drums. I don't know if that's a thing, but like, I would think it'd be fun.
Will. Nobody ever teaches classes on drums.
I don't know if it's all private.
Classes on drums.
I don't know if it's all private instruction or if there's like college classes on drums or not. But so I'm just thinking in a music context, staying in one instrument's lane. Like, what if you had your students do a song, but everybody played like 30 seconds of it, or 10. You know what I mean? Like, somebody starts it and literally like hits the first couple of hits, and then Paul stops theirs, and the next student has to come in and pick up from that part and play the next 15 seconds of the song. And Josh is kind of like looking, trying to. I don't know how practical this is.
I'm trying to envision the logistics of doing that.
But it's like a creative approach. Like, how can we get the
you
students to all play the song?
Potentially use VoiceThread to do that. If we're talking drums or a music part, like, I mean, I guess you could.
VoiceThread has an autoplay feeture, so if you put all of them side by side, it would just keep playing.
Yeah, it would
wouldn't
play
stop.
them together. I mean, like,
it might sound like a real song.
I would be willing to try that.
Cool.
Will they all be on the same tempo? It's questionable. I mean, with a metronome, maybe.
There you go.
I guess. Anyway, the point here, though, is that like the responding to each other in timelines of videos, in audio, in different formats with visuals. It brings it all together into a singular space for me, which is why I really like what I see from VoiceThread so far. So
I think you need a lot of tools to accomplish this in other ways.
Yes.
Or you can use one tool, VoiceThread, to get it done.
If you're doing this outside of VoiceThread or outside, because there are other comparable tools to VoiceThread. They're not the only ones doing this thing. But if you're not using those tools, like, think about this, right? If you're not using these tools, so let's just say you don't have VoiceThread, you're probably creating some type of PowerPoint presentation. You could maybe insert videos into the PowerPoint presentation, right? But how are they responding to you? Well, they're probably sending an entire video response back, because I hate to tell you, PowerPoint does not have a way for them to just respond in video. I guess you could send them the file and they could upload it, but that's a nightmare. But again, like, even the logistics, like 3 or 4 different things you'd have to do. And VoiceThread, it's as simple as getting that VoiceThread content to them responding back, you responding back in there. VoiceThread notifies you when they make comments and things in the videos. Yeah. And there's collaboration too in there. There's a potential for you to have your students collaborate together in response to this, and that would be even tougher in a different space. Hypothetically, you're creating an entire drum beat with 5 or 6 different people. As somebody I've heard suggested, you're not doing that anywhere else other than VoiceThread.
I don't know. I don't know.
I want to try it now. It might be a thing. It's gonna be a thing.
Well,
Somebody do it.
Everybody does these TikTok things, right? Where like
you just sounded super old.
You see the.
You're like, all these people doing these TikTok
kids
things.
these days in their
these
TikTok.
Kids in the TikTok.
in the TikTok, yeah. But like, I don't know if you remember seeing it. Like, the stuntmen all did the thing where like a stuntman would like throw a ball up and kick it, and it would go off screen, and then the next stuntman would like catch it, but like do a backflip while they caught it. Like, I don't know. I just think of like creating a narrative stretch across different videos, different people.
Catching balls across videos is totally
same thing as drumming an entire song.
Same thing as drumming. Okay. Anyway, VoiceThread, it's cool. I encourage checking it out because of the freemium method. Like, I just did this earlier. You can create a free account and play around with it a little bit. So I encourage, if this is something that you need, check it out, especially if you're in a discipline that's doing a lot of skills-based stuff. You're in some of the disciplines we've been talking about. The reality is you're going to get your money out of this.
Yeah.
We're not sponsored by VoiceThread. They're not giving us money.
Hashtag not sponsored.
Hashtag not a sponsor. I genuinely think you'd get your money out of a tool like this if you in had a to pay for it. Where you had to do this all the time.
And I would actually be encouraged to see like a Spanish department getting a license for all the Spanish instructors or something.
Because I think you're going to give it a richer experience with a tool like this. This is a genuine tool where I feel like you get a better enhanced experience
than
in the online
options,
format
the other options.
than the other options.
Yeah.
Yes, there's some other tools that do what VoiceThread does, but even at a preliminary look, because Will has more experience with this than I do, with VoiceThread specifically, like preliminary, it's like, yeah, that would be really easy to take. What I like is it'd be easy to take stuff that you already have as an instructor and build out something different online. Which is always, anytime you can save time or you don't have to like create brand new content off of something, I think is great. And I think VoiceThread is a cool tool that would allow you to do that. So check it out, VoiceThread, if you're listening. We like you. Come talk to us.
Come get interviewed.
Yeah. Come get interviewed.
Thank you, folks. This has been another week of the High Tech Podcast. Will and Josh here. Please do like us on Twitter, like us on the different platforms we are on: Apple, Google, Spotify, etc. Reviews do help us get found. We're not here to be found. We're here to have fun. So you appreciate that if you're there to do it. But otherwise, just let us know if you're liking things, if you'd like to hear more, or if there's anything we should change.
Yeah. Or you got a tool you want to suggest. We're always open to ideas.
Boom.
That's another thing.
Drop it in our
something you want to drop in.
inbox at hightechpod.us.
Or message us on Twitter.
Is that our website? That's our website.
Yeah, that's our website.
Until next week, when we discuss how to harness technology in the physical and digital classroom. See ya.
See ya.